It was 11 p.m. The town was quiet, and then the sky exploded. A Russian drone, either malfunctioned or was deliberately redirected, crossed into NATO territory and slammed into a residential apartment building in Romania. 2 civilians injured, 1 smoking ruin, and a world that will never feel safe the same way again. Now here's what the news didn't tell you. The explosion was over in seconds, but the economic shockwave it triggered is still spreading right now. Through your food prices, through your energy bills, through the businesses you're trying to build. In the next 24 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what happened, why it matters to your money specifically, and, most importantly, where the smartest capital in the world is moving right now so you can position yourself before the rest of the world figures it out. Because one drone just rewrote the rules of global wealth, and most people have absolutely no idea. Stay with me. For over 2 years, the people of Galati slept soundly. They had NATO. They had F-16S. They had the most powerful military alliance in human history protecting their borders. They were safe, or so they believed. Think about what that feels like. You live 30 miles from an active war zone. Every night you hear distant explosions, but you tell yourself, we're inside the line. We're protected. Nothing can cross that line. And then, one night, something does. The drone tore through concrete and glass. Emergency sirens started wailing, and within minutes, Romanian F-16S were scrambling into the air. But here's where it gets interesting for everyone watching this video, because those fighter pilots faced a decision that exposed something nobody wanted to admit. They didn't shoot it down. NATO's best military minds, with radar systems, fighter jets, and decades of doctrine, hesitated when a cheap drone flew over a residential neighborhood, because the cost of being wrong was a world war. So they waited, and the drone landed first. That hesitation, that single moment of tactical caution, revealed a crack in the shield that every major investment bank on the planet noticed immediately. But before we talk about the money, and because that's where this gets really alarming, you need to understand what this drone was actually part of. Because it wasn't an accident, it was a strategy, and that strategy has a name. What if I told you that the most dangerous kind of war is one where nobody officially fires a shot? For months before that night in Romania, military aircraft and unidentified drones had been drifting closer and closer to alliance borders, testing radar response times, mapping blind spots, measuring exactly how long it takes a NATO country to react. This is called gray zone warfare, and it's brilliant in a terrifying way. Here's the math. A drone costs a few $1,000s to build and launch. The military response to one drone, scrambling fighter jets, activating air defense networks, mobilizing ground crews, costs millions every single time. That's $3,000 drone versus a $3 million military response. That's not a military strategy, that's an economic strategy. Bleed your enemy's defense budget dry without ever officially starting a war, and it's working. Behind the scenes, the financial cost of keeping European troops on permanent high alert has been skyrocketing for months. Governments are being forced to reallocate billions away from hospitals, schools, and infrastructure into emergency military readiness. That money doesn't disappear. It disappears from your economy. When a government shifts spending from building roads to buying radar systems, ordinary people feel it in higher taxes, slower growth, reduced public services. The drone didn't just hit a building in Romania. It reached into the pocket of every working person in Europe. But the financial damage gets far worse because Galati isn't just any town. And the Danube River isn't just any river, and what happens to that river affects what you pay for food, fuel, and almost everything you buy. I'll show you exactly why, right now. Most people look at a map of Romania and see a small country on Europe's edge. The world's largest trading companies look at the same map and see a choke point, a single point of failure that, if disrupted, could trigger inflation on every continent simultaneously. The Danube River flows directly into the Black Sea, and the Black Sea is one of the most important shipping arteries on the planet. Every single month, millions of tons of wheat, corn, cooking oil, and industrial metals move through these waters. Ukrainian grain feeds over 400 million people across Africa, the Middle East, and Asia. Russian oil keeps European factories running. It all moves through this one body of water. When that drone hit, commercial shipping captains did exactly what any rational person would do. They stopped. A $100 million container ship is not going to sail into a zone where military drones are falling from the sky. So they dropped anchor and waited. Here's what that waiting costs you personally. The chain reaction works like this. Shipping stops. Insurance companies activate war risk premiums. Shipping costs triple overnight. Companies pass those costs to consumers. The price of bread in North Africa goes up. The cost of manufacturing parts in Asia goes up. Your grocery bill goes up. All because of one drone in one town that most people had never heard of. Traders in Chicago and London watching those screens knew immediately what was coming. When food and metal can't move, traders panic buy futures contracts to lock in supply. Prices spike. Inflation accelerates. And central banks, who are already struggling, have absolutely no good tool to fight this kind of inflation, because you can't lower interest rates to fix a drone strike. So we have military hesitation, we have supply chain paralysis, we have inflation spreading like a virus. But here's the part that nobody in the mainstream media is talking about, because it's the part that will actually determine where wealth goes in the next 10 years. Stop for a second. I know this is a lot of information, and I know some of you are thinking, okay, this is interesting, but what does this actually mean for me? Here's what it means. Everything we've covered so far, the drone, the Danube, the shipping freeze, the inflation spike, that's the setup. What comes next is the strategy. Where is the smartest institutional capital on the planet moving right now in direct response to what happened in Romania? And how do you position yourself in front of that wave before it breaks? If you've stayed this long, you're already ahead of 90% of people who turned this off 5 minutes ago. Stay with me. The most valuable part of this video starts right now. Money doesn't disappear in a crisis, it moves. And right now, it's moving faster than at any point since World War II. The question is, do you know where it's going? The European Union just activated what they're calling the SAFE initiative, Security Action for Europe. This is a multi-billion euro program designed to pump money directly into border defense, military manufacturing, and cybersecurity infrastructure. Poland alone just received over 6 billion euros in the first wave of payments. That's not a rumor. That's a signed transfer. Here's what that means for capital allocation. Government money is the safest money in any economy. It doesn't speculate, it doesn't panic, it executes. And right now, government money, made by the trillions, is flowing into defense manufacturing, radar and surveillance technology, cybersecurity infrastructure, domestic nearshore manufacturing, and critical logistics and border supply chains. NATO is pushing member nations toward a defense spending target of 5% of GDP. Let that number sink in. 5% of the entire economic output of the world's wealthiest nations locked into defense and security for the next decade. That's not a policy suggestion. That's a guaranteed revenue stream for every company building the tools of security. Meanwhile, and this is critical, large venture capital funds are quietly pulling money out of high-risk startups near volatile borders. Foreign direct investment into Eastern Europe's speculative sectors is retreating fast. That capital is relocating into secure Western European hubs and North American markets. If you're a young entrepreneur sitting near a geopolitical border, this is not the time to scale aggressively outward. This is the time to build defensively inward. But following the capital is only half the picture. Because the other shift, the one that will permanently restructure how every business operates for the next 20 years, is happening in the supply chain. And it's happening right now, whether you're ready or not. For 30 years, the global economy ran on one simple principle: efficiency above everything. Find the cheapest labor, find the cheapest shipping route, find the cheapest everything. That era is over. The drone in Romania proves something that the most efficient supply chains in the world cannot absorb. Geopolitical risk is now a physical reality, not a spreadsheet variable. A physical reality. A factory built inside a treaty-protected nation is not automatically safe from disruption. A shipping route that passes through a conflict-adjacent waterway is not reliable. The insurance markets already know this. They repriced overnight. The new business mandate has a name: nearshoring. Instead of building supply chains across 12 countries to maximize cost efficiency, companies are rebuilding those chains as close to home as possible, even if it costs more. Nearshoring means paying more to sleep at night. Yes, it's more expensive, but a factory that keeps running during a crisis is infinitely more valuable than a cheap factory that shuts down the moment a drone crosses a border. And layered on top of this physical restructuring, there's the cyber threat. As geopolitical friction intensifies, retaliatory cyber attacks on commercial infrastructure have hit an all-time high in 2026. Companies are now spending a significant portion of their operating budget on advanced digital protection. This is no longer optional. It's a tax on operating in the modern economy. Higher insurance, localized supply chains, mandatory cybersecurity, add it all up, and inflation is no longer temporary. It's structural. It's baked into the cost of every product you make and every service you sell, forever, until the geopolitical reality changes. And there's no sign it's about to. So what do you actually do with all of this? Because understanding the problem is only valuable if you know how to navigate it. Here's the framework I'd use right now, if I were building or growing a business in this environment. Every crisis in history has created two groups of people: those who lost everything because they were still playing by the old rules, and those who built generational wealth because they recognized the new ones. The drone in Romania just announced which era we're entering. The question is, which group you're going to be in. Here's the practical framework. 3 moves, in this order. Move 1. Follow the government money. Governments don't speculate. They commit. And right now, they're committing trillions to defense, cybersecurity, and critical infrastructure. If you're building a business, find the intersection between what you do and what governments are being forced to buy. That's where guaranteed demand is being manufactured. Move 2. Audit your supply chain for geopolitical exposure. If your business depends on goods moving through the Black Sea, Eastern Europe, or any other conflict-adjacent region, you need a backup route today, not tomorrow. The companies who built redundancy before the crisis hit are the ones still operating. The ones who didn't are still waiting for their cargo. Move 3. Stop pricing your products as if the old world still exists. Higher insurance, higher shipping, higher security, higher energy. These are permanent costs now. A business that doesn't account for them in its pricing model is slowly going bankrupt without realizing it. The most dangerous business decision you can make right now is hoping things go back to the way they were. They won't. The people who thrive in this new era won't be the ones who were the most efficient. They'll be the ones who were the most prepared. Resilience is the new competitive advantage, and right now, very few people have built it, which means right now, there is a window. One drone, one night, one Romanian town most people have never heard of, and the entire architecture of global wealth is being restructured around it. Here's what I want you to take away from everything you just heard. The smoke over that apartment building in Romania has cleared, but the economic ripples are still spreading, and they will keep spreading for months, possibly years. I want to ask you something directly. Where is your business or investment exposed right now? Are you dependent on a single supply route, a single market, a single assumption of stability that a drone just proved wrong? Drop your answer in the comments. Tell me your industry, your concern, your specific situation. Because I go through every comment personally, and I will give you a direct, specific response. Not a generic answer, a real one. And here's what's coming next. This video was about the breach, what happened and why it matters. The next one is about the opportunity, the specific sectors and regions where early position investors are quietly building positions right now before this becomes mainstream news. The window for that positioning is narrow. My subscribers are getting it first, the moment it drops. If you're not subscribed yet, do it now. Hit the bell, because what comes next builds directly on everything you just learned. And in this environment, being early is everything. The world changed the night that drone hit Romanian soil. The only question now is whether you change with it.